the bride from the east. The evening sun hung low over the dusty plains, painting the sky in colors of amber and gold. The faint sound of a horse's hooves echoed through the valley as Luke Callahan, a solitary cowboy with weathered hands and a heart scarred by silence, guided his chestnut mare toward the small town of Silver Creek. Luke wasn't a man of many words. He lived on a ranch far beyond the town's edge, a place of quiet winds, old fences, and long shadows. His father had died years back, leaving him with acres of land and no one to share them with. For years, Luke worked the soil, raised cattle, and kept to himself. The loneliness had become a companion he never wanted but couldn't shake. But now, for the first time in his life, Luke was waiting for someone. A train whistle broke the silence as it rolled into the tiny Silver Creek station. Steam billowed into the air as passengers stepped down, their boots clinking on the wooden platform. Among them was Clara Hayes, a young woman with a nervous grip on her suitcase and eyes that shone with quiet determination. She had never been this far west before. The wide-open sky, the dry wind, the endless horizon, it all felt like a dream and a promise at once. Clara had answered Luke's advertisement through a matchmaker's paper, rancher seeking wife. Honest, hardworking, simple life. She was not seeking luxury. She was seeking peace, and perhaps someone who might see her heart instead of her past. Luke spotted her instantly. The way she looked around, both curious and cautious, made something in his chest stir. He took off his hat, his throat tightening as he stepped forward. "Miss Hayes?" he asked. Her eyes lifted to his, warm brown meeting deep blue. She nodded, a faint blush touching her cheeks. "Mr. Callahan?" He gave a small nod. "Luke's fine." For a moment, neither spoke. The air between them felt fragile, as if one wrong word could shatter it. Finally, Luke took her suitcase, gently but firmly. "Let's get you home." The ride to the ranch was quiet. The world around them rolled by in shades of gold and fading blue, the scent of wild sage drifting in the wind. Clara kept glancing at Luke from the corner of her eye, his strong jaw, the quiet way he guided the reins, the faint scar above his brow. He looked like a man who had lived through storms, the kind that left marks you couldn't see. "Your land is beautiful," she said softly. He gave a brief smile. "It's hard, but it's home." When they reached the ranch, the sky had turned to velvet. Fireflies danced near the barn, and the distant hoot of an owl echoed through the stillness. Luke helped Clara down from the wagon, his hand brushing hers. For a second, he froze. Her skin was soft, too soft for a world so rough. Something in him trembled, not from fear, but from the strange warmth that surged through his chest. Clara looked up at him, her voice barely above a whisper. "Thank you, Luke." He swallowed hard. "You're welcome, ma'am." That night, the small house glowed with lamplight. Clara unpacked quietly, arranging her few belongings on a wooden dresser. Luke sat outside on the porch, the stars glittering above him like silver dust. He could hear the faint rustle of her movements inside, the sound of hope settling into an empty home. He should have been happy. After all, this was what he wanted. But something inside him trembled. He wasn't used to company, let alone a woman who might see beyond his rough silence. When Clara stepped outside, wearing a simple blue dress and holding 2 mugs of coffee, Luke nearly forgot to breathe. "I thought we might share a cup," she said, shyly offering one. He took it carefully, their fingers touching again, and just like before, he froze. The warmth from her skin traveled straight to his chest. He could barely meet her eyes. Clara smiled softly, seeing his hesitation. "You don't talk much, do you?" Luke managed a half-smile. Talking never fixed much on a ranch. She laughed gently, a sound that melted the night around them. "Maybe not, but listening can." For the first time in years, Luke felt something break open inside him, the quiet beginning of something he couldn't yet name. When the moon rose high, Clara excused herself, whispering a good night. Luke remained on the porch long after, staring into the silver-lit sky. Tomorrow would be their wedding. Simple, quiet, done by the local preacher. And the day after that, she would be his wife in every sense of the word. But even as he thought of it, A strange fear gripped him, not of marriage, not of commitment, but of her touch. He wasn't sure why. Maybe it was because no one had ever touched him with kindness before. He looked toward the window where her shadow moved faintly inside, then tipped his hat low and whispered to the stars, "Don't let me break what I just found." The night, he froze. The morning came with a soft orange glow spilling over the horizon. The ranch seemed quieter than usual, as if the earth itself held its breath for what was about to happen. Luke rose early, as always, fed the horses, checked the fences, and tried not to think too hard about the vows he'd be speaking in a few hours. Clara, meanwhile, stood before the small mirror in the guest room. She brushed her hair, carefully pinning it back with trembling fingers. Her dress was simple, white cotton with lace at the collar, but when she saw herself in it, her eyes watered. She wasn't a child anymore, nor just a girl from the East trying to escape her past. Today, she was going to be someone's wife. When Luke finally knocked on the door, his voice was low, almost hesitant. "You ready, Clara?" She turned, smiled softly. "I think so." He looked at her, really looked, and for a moment forgot how to breathe. There was something pure and steady in her eyes, something that reached the quietest parts of him. The preacher came just after noon. There were no guests, no music, only the wind moving through the fields and the distant hum of cicadas. They stood beneath the old oak tree near the barn, its branches shading them like a silent witness. "Do you, Luke Callahan, take Clara Hayes to be your lawfully wedded wife?" Luke's voice wavered once before it steadied. "I do." "And do you, Clara Hayes, take Luke Callahan?" "I do." It was done. Just like that, two lonely souls found a name to call each other by. When the preacher left, Luke stood there awkwardly, his hat in his hands, unsure what to say. Clara smiled, saving him the trouble. "Well, Mr. Callahan," she said gently, "I suppose that makes me Mrs. Callahan now." He gave a soft, almost shy laugh. "Reckon it does." That evening, they shared supper together. The table between them was small, the lamp flickering softly. Clara had cooked stew and biscuits, nothing fancy, but Luke couldn't remember the last time someone had made him a meal with care. "You'll have to tell me what you like," she said, glancing at him across the table. "Everything's perfect," he replied, and meant it. They talked a little more about the land, about her life back east, about how she loved the smell of rain, and how he preferred silence to small talk. It was simple, but in that simplicity, something tender began to grow. When Clara stood to clear the table, Luke reached out to help. Their hands met again, just like before. That same rush of warmth ran through him, but stronger now. He froze. Clara noticed it this time, the way his breath caught, the way his eyes flickered away. "Luke," she asked softly, "did I do something wrong?" He shook his head, setting the plate down gently. "No, Clara, you didn't. It's just—" She stepped closer, her voice barely above a whisper. "Just what?" He looked down, ashamed. "I don't know how to do this. I've worked the land my whole life. Never been with anyone. Never even let anyone close." Clara's heart softened. She reached out, resting her hand over his chest, where his heartbeat thudded like a drum. "You don't have to know how," she whispered. "You just have to want to." He froze again, not from fear this time, but from feeling. Every wall he'd built, every year of silence and solitude, trembled under that gentle touch. He looked in her eyes, saw no judgment, no pity, only warmth. "Clara," he breathed, "you are too kind." She smiled sadly. "No, I just understand what it's like to be alone." That night, the world outside was wrapped in silver moonlight. Inside the small wooden house, the air was still, quiet, and full of the unspoken. Clara stood by the window, looking out at the vast stretch of land that was now her home. Luke stood by the doorway, his hands shaking slightly, unsure whether to move closer or stay where he was. Finally, he spoke. "You deserve someone better than me. Someone who knows what to say, what to do." Clara turned, her eyes glistening. "Luke, I didn't come here looking for perfection. I came here looking for peace. You give me that already." She stepped closer until she was right in front of him. Her hands found his rough, calloused, trembling. She lifted them slowly, pressing them to her heart. "This," she said softly, "is where we start. He looked at her, really saw her, and something inside him shifted. The fear that had held him still began to melt away. He cupped her face gently, his thumb brushing her cheek. "I don't want to hurt you," he whispered. "You won't," she said. "You couldn't." He bent his forehead to hers, their breaths mingling, the air trembling with feeling. They stood like that for a long moment, two broken, searching souls finding their way to warmth. Later, when the lamp dimmed and the night deepened, Luke sat awake for a while, holding her hand as she slept beside him. The stars outside glimmered softly through the window. For the first time in years, the emptiness inside him was gone. He thought about how her touch had terrified him, and how that same touch had saved him. He whispered quietly, almost to himself, "Guess I was the one who needed teaching." And from that night on, the quiet ranch that once echoed with loneliness began to hum with laughter, soft voices, and the sound of love growing in small, tender ways, like wildflowers after the rain. The end.